Hello everyone, I'm back with another video. It is still Monday for people who want to know. So in today's video I'm going to be talking about one of the things that you don't mention that I did that I should not have done, because the reaction that I got from people was not positive at all. So, several months back, when I decided to get back into writing, and so here's a little history of me and my writing. I have done writing before. I have, I had several young adult horror books, which I will also be doing as well. So I'm doing mystery and young adult horror. So, so, uh, so when I was writing this, Amazon didn't have the self-publishing company, publishing arm, and Barnes & Noble didn't have self-publishing arm. And so you had to go through a self-publishing company, and it was at least about $1,600. I do not know if that place is in business anymore. So I would sit there and I would type away, and I would have 8, 9, 10 finished manuscripts. So I had 10 finished books. And so, I had a friend who was during the process of proofreading the first one and stuff, and then I lost them. I lost my manuscripts. So, yeah. So, when you tell people that you're publishing a book, I think it's a byproduct of it. I think it's I don't know if I mentioned this, but I think it's a byproduct of how little people take books to heart. So, if I was publishing 20 years ago, if I told people I was writing a book, I probably would have gotten a lot more excitement over it than I would get now. And that is the sad thing about how bad things have gotten as far as appreciating the written word and everything. So, everybody in my job knows that I'm writing a book, and that I will be sending it out on its own way. So it seems to me that when you go and you are having a conversation about one thing, it can suddenly bleed into an entirely different thing. So one of the guys there at work was talking about censorship of I think it was he said that his parents didn't want him to be listening to a certain kind of I think it was Eminem. I think it was. And I made a comment about how, back in I think it was the 70s or the 80s, I think it was the 80s, that these Christian right-wing people, especially in seats of government, were trying to outlaw heavy metal and all that type of stuff. And I said to him, I said that if these people had had their way, you would have never listened to Eminem because he would have been censored. And then I made a comment that if you think that your parents trying to censor you from listening to Eminem is bad, imagine if they had a group behind them. And then I go into the whole thing about the book bans and all that. And this is a really weird thing about it is him and his friend had the gall to say, well, there's pornographic stuff in, in these books. And I'm like, define pornographic. And they're like, well, don't you know the definition? It says, I know the definition, but I want you to tell me the definition. And, told me the accurate definition for pornography. I said, okay, so have you read any of the books that you deem to be pornographic? And just like clockwork, the answer was no. I said, well, then how do you know it's pornographic? And everything. So when you go and you're supporting what's going on and you don't care where it leads as long as you get what you want, don't be surprised if Eminem ends up being banned or censored. And then, I told him, I said, what would you do if a book that you wanted to read was at Barnes & Noble and then the government came in and took it away? How would you feel? How would you feel if you were put in prison for saying the wrong thing or thinking the wrong thought? And I told him, I said, here's a little lesson, here's a little piece of advice. Don't support anything that may come back to bite you on the ass later on. Because trust me, you ain't going to be happy when that happens. So I made it very clear to them. I'm against book bans. I'm against censorship of any kind. And it's important to make that deviation. That we have to stand up and we need to protect the rights of everyone because you don't care about everyone. You care about yourself. And you want to dictate what other people can and cannot read. And that's just wrong on so many levels. It's just one of those things that you have to constantly fight that fight. Because before you know it, you won't have anything. So lessons learned. Another thing I wanted to mention in this before I leave is there was a book, I cannot pronounce the author's name, so I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but she wrote a book called Love in the Library. And she, the book had rave reviews, not some rave reviews. And Scholastic decided that they wanted to take it up and put it under their banner. But then they told her that, well, you're going to have to take mentions of racism out of your author's note. And she was like, no. And this is the thing. This is called the sanitizing of history. This is when you go and take what another country did and you try to make it look good or you try to sanitize it. And that is my issue with it. This is why I'm very leery about even when I have 4 or 5 books out under Amazon under self-publishing. My big worry is that if I tried to get my books published by a traditional publisher, that they would try to sanitize the entire book. and it's just, you know, it's just stupid. But what I'm really considering doing is once again writing my series that I started over close to about 13 or 14 years ago. I don't remember the titles of every one that I chose, but I do know one of them was a thrift store. So and I'm going to go into that in the next video, because I think it's going to be pretty cool for you to be like, oh yeah, I want to do a Fear Street like series. Yeah. So I will talk about that in the next video. I'll see you guys then.